Howdy, howdy, gang. Okay, this is the introductory video for COM 211, Introduction to Rhetorical Research. This is the third video in a row that I just put together here. I have three classes. I got Rhetorical Tradition, Principles of Persuasion, and Introduction to Rhetorical Research. And I like to record fresh introductory videos at the beginning of a semester to say hi, to talk about, the class, what to expect this semester, any changes that I've made, because I have made some, and to just sort of launch things. So here we go. Hope everyone's well. I'll just sort of start at the beginning here. My name is Donovan Conley. I am an associate professor of rhetoric in our Department of Communication Studies, and I've been here for longer than anyone. I've been here since 2004. I'm the most senior member of our program. Maybe not the oldest, but I've been here the longest. And when I very first joined the faculty back in 2004, I taught a class called COM 211, and it was essentially what is now COM 409. It's the rhetorical tradition. And I used to teach it as a large lecture on the north part of the quad in this classroom that goes underneath the ground. It's a big auditorium, and I used to teach the rhetorical tradition called COM 211. I taught it to like over 100 students at a time. Imagine coming out of grad school and having to do that. It was a different time. So it's been many years since then, and things have changed a lot. And so now COM 211 is Introduction to Rhetorical Research, and the class that I used to teach is now COM 409. It's a little bit more involved than it used to be. So here we are in 211, and this is meant to be more of a low-level introductory, like maybe you haven't had much exposure to rhetoric, maybe you've just done public speaking, or 104, what's 104? Critical thinking in public life or something, daily life. And those would be good ways to kind of begin, and then hopefully this one comes next. Hopefully you have a little bit of rhetoric before coming into this class. If not, you can still do fine. We're starting slow and basic and kind of getting a little bit more complicated as we go. But yeah, the class is meant to really just kind of get you exposed to some basic ideas about rhetoric, where it is, how it operates, how to think about it, and some of the kind of major ideas, concepts, and theories about it, and so on. So the format of the class, actually, let me talk a little bit more about myself first. I always forget to introduce myself. So yeah, Donovan Conley, I've been here for many years. I'm an associate professor of rhetoric, and I study and I write about rhetoric in a kind of broad sense, maybe not as broad as David Gruber. He's more of like philosophical, like rhetoric is ontological. It's like part of the wood and the air we breathe. I'm not that deep into it. I'm mostly interested in the stuff that's happening on the ground here. And for me, I'm mostly interested in food and food systems and practices around eating and dining and consumption. My major interest is taste, the theory of taste, which is not really a hot topic in rhetoric today, but it used to be a couple hundred years ago. And I think it still matters. I think it's really important. Think about how it is that our tastes are shaped, and then also how taste itself shapes the world that we live in. It's a huge fulcrum in terms of like our environments, our subjectivities. That's where I live in terms of my research, my writings, my projects. And then with my teaching, I teach about history, theories, criticism, the idea of publicness, the idea of rhetoric, kind of part of everyday life and culture that surrounds us. It's popular. It's part of how we live our lives moment to moment, right? And so thinking about what rhetoric is, where it comes from, what are the like maybe better versions, maybe worse versions, all that kind of stuff. So the format of the class, we got 5 units or modules or whatever you want to call them, and they're each 3 weeks. So we've got rhetoric as persuasion and argumentation. That goes straight back to the beginnings, at least the beginnings in terms of thinking about rhetoric as an area of study and a discipline and like a training ground for a certain kind of competency and activity. So argumentation, right? That's Aristotle for sure. Next, we've got symbolic action and identification. That's Kenneth Burke. That's mid-20th century type stuff. Then we get public confrontation. That's more like 60s and 70s, thinking about rhetoric as part of agitation and opposition and resistance and and resisting power and pushing back, right? We go even further with that in the fourth unit or module on power, social power. And that's a setup for the last one on basically digital technologies, because that's all powerful. And it is part of our social fabric, and it involves all kinds, it sort of subsumes all of the other ones, right? So there's a kind of journey that we're taking here, from arguments to forms of persuasion and influence that we might not be that aware of. But for my work, it's really important to kind of be thinking about stuff that we don't necessarily see, smell, taste, touch, that's not necessarily coming directly at us right in front of us, but there's other stuff that's happening that we should be made aware of. So that's the kind of overall structure of the class. There's no textbook. Everything's on Canvas. It should be pretty obvious there. We're borrowing some ideas from this really handy and nifty thing that Attila Halsby, I think he's at Minnesota, at least he was, and he put together this untext, but this sort of online textbook-ish thing that's pretty useful. So we'll have some links to parts of that, and then a lot of just articles and such that I've uploaded. A lot of the material is coming through video lectures that I've created in previous semesters, and that's the main bulk of my lecturing. Those are important. A lot of the assignments are based on that kind of stuff, the tests and so on. That's where you're getting my kind of spin or interpretation or emphasis on the readings. So because I'm the one who's also creating the assignments, like the stuff that I'm talking about in those videos tends to be the stuff that you want to focus on for the work. All right, so the assignments, I have made a big kind of lift this semester. I dabbled with some contract grading last semester. It went okay, but I decided to go all in this semester. Why contract grading? I wonder how much experience or exposure to contract grading you guys already have, and how you think about it. I haven't got a ton of student feedback yet, so this is all pretty new for me. But the idea with contract gradings is we're all coming into this class at different places. In terms of levels of interest in the material, this is a required class, right? So you might not have much interest in this kind of stuff. Understood, right? Or you might have an exceptionally busy semester because you're trying to take on extra credits, or you need more hours at work, or maybe you just had a baby, or who knows. Life is complicated and busy. So the idea of the contracts is for you to be very realistic with yourself and with me and the class about what you're likely, or what you care to involve yourself in over the next 15 or so weeks, right? So the idea of the contracts, there's 3 contracts, or I think of them as paths. You can take the A path, the B path, or the C path. Another term that is often used here is bundles. There's a bundle of assignments that correspond with the A path, a bundle that corresponds with B and C. And really the difference is the amount, the quantity of the bundling, right? So basically you're doing more. If you take the A path, you're doing all of the assignments. If you take the B path, you're doing some of them. If you take the C path, you're doing just a few. So it kind of comes down to how much time, how much energy, how much interest you have in the class, or what grade do you care about making, must you make, you don't need to make an A, you're happy with the B, you're perfectly fine with a C, right? These are your choices. So it's an approach that I guess embraces honesty and reality and sort of the actual situation of your life. And it's also trying to help me, my actual situation, which is I have close to 100 students, and including grad students, and there's across the 3 different sections that I'm teaching, there's something like, close to 20 different assignments, right? So that's a ton of grading, but I also have my research projects, which are super important, the writing, the conferences, and the talking and all that kind of stuff. So it's also meant to help give me maybe a lightened grading sort of load, right? So if we can better assess where your guys are at, not give you work that you don't want to take, need to take, it's meant to be more honest. So the assignment sort of in total include 5 unit quizzes that everyone will take regardless of contract. That's sort of the baseline. And those are just 10 question quizzes that follow each unit or module, whatever we're calling it. Right, so 3 weeks of learning and then a 10 question quiz. That's standard for everyone. Now, everyone needs to get a 9 out of 10 in order for that to be considered complete. But you can retake the quiz as much as you want. You can use your books and your notes, and so it's basically kind of like a homework activity. And keep doing it until you clear the bar, 9 out of 10, then you're good. Beyond that, so everyone is doing all 5 quizzes, but then beyond that, you have options. So if you want the A, and now I'm on the 3rd page. So if you want the A contract, you're doing all 9 assignments, which includes also 2 short analysis papers, a grant proposal, a show and tell, which is basically like, hey, here's a rhetorical phenomenon, let me tell you why, right? And then the final one is this creative video assignment, and that's asking you to think about your learning in this class and how it might tee you up for your career aspirations. So I hope, we're getting a lot of pressure is maybe not the right word, but encouragement and there's a lot of motivation coming from the chairs, the deans. The university is taking this hard workforce readiness kind of angle lately, right? It's like all we want to be focusing on is getting our students into jobs, right? So everything's got to be very much about the workplace and workforce readiness. And so this last assignment is asking you to think about where you're heading career-wise, what your interests are, and how this kind of stuff might help you or might help you understand that path, all right? That's the thinking behind the assignments. So if you're doing the A contract, you're doing all of those. If you're doing the B contract, you're doing the quizzes plus 3 of those 5 additional assignments. And then if you're doing the C contract, you're doing the quizzes plus 2 of those 5 assignments, all right? So that's it. It's 9 assignments or 8 assignments or 7 assignments for the different contracts. And the way to think about this is not that if you're doing the C contract, you can get away with inferior work. The idea here is that we're all sprinters and we're all running as fast as we can. AI came up with Claude. I was working with Claude when I put this together, and Claude actually came up with this analogy of the running. And it was making the argument that, like, it's not that the expectation is that the C contract students are running slower, you're just running fewer races, right? And so, the A contract students have to run 9 races, and the expectation is that you're running them all as fast as you can. The B contract students are running fewer races, but again, the expectation is that you're running them as fast as you can, and same with the C students, right? So the distinction here is between completed and incompleted, and so what counts as completed is what matters here, right? So I have spent a good amount of time over the last few days putting together these little boxes on the middle pages where it explains what counts as a complete for each of the assignments. Now, for the quizzes, it's just when you get to that 9 out of 10. So keep taking it until you get there, then you're done. There's no revision for quizzes. For the grant proposal and all the other ones, there's an indication in the boxes of what, basically it's like a grading rubric. This is what we're looking for. This is what I'm looking for. So if you want, this is the bar you want to clear. If you're doing all the things that are listed in each of these boxes for each of the assignments, then you will complete the assignment, all right? But you want to make sure you're clear in the bar. Now, if you're close, but you're not quite there, then I will say, sorry, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, try again. So that's a revise. And now you have a week to do that additional work. And once it's in there, now you're complete. If you've completely blown it, not even close, then you're going to get an incomplete, and that's a fail. So don't put yourself in that position. You have to really not do the work on an assignment and not even really look at this thing or look at the assignment and its expectations in order to get the incomplete. I'm going to try to work with you. But you got to also, give me your best effort here. So the whole idea behind this kind of like complete incomplete is, I was nervous when I was talking with AI, with Claude about this, but wait, how do I maintain standards with the complete incomplete? And it just kept saying, just got to spell it out. Got to let them know what the expectation for complete is. And the other thing is you don't get endless revisions here, right? So you got to nail it the first time out. You're running a race as fast as you can, so you got to really take each of these assignments seriously and make sure that you're clearing those bars. And if you do that, by the way, if you have any questions about what those expectations are or what it takes to complete something and how it applies to this given assignment, please reach out to me before the deadline. Okay, we're not doing extra credit. We're not doing bonus at the end of the semester. And we're not doing any of that makeup stuff. Just make sure that you are, first of all, you know when your deadlines are, and you're taking, giving yourself enough time to do the work and to give yourself enough time to think about it and to get into it, so that if you hit any kind of snags along the way, you can be like, I should go talk to Conley, set up a meeting, we'll talk it through. You wouldn't believe how much that can help, right? I would love to talk to my undergraduate students about more than just, hey, I'm sick, I'm going to be late on this assignment. I get that that's an important part of just the communication part of the class. But I also miss talking about ideas, about the readings, about the concepts. And so whenever students come to me before an assignment is due and say, I would love to ask you some questions about the assignment or the readings or whatever, I get excited. Yeah, let's get into it. All right. So, there's an honesty kind of aspect built into this, which is you need to be honest with yourself about what you want and what you're able to do and to what you're able to give this class. But then there's the accountability part, which is once you've kind of decided which path, you got to make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance, right? So that's the thinking here. I'm a little nervous. I haven't done anything as like wholesale new as this kind of approach, and I'm doing it across all of my sections. So let's hope. Please be patient with me, because I'm still updating Canvas and I'm still changing assignments. I have to strip out the old point systems from the old, previously created assignments. So there's a lot of little kind of adjustments that I'm still having to make. This was a much bigger lift than I thought it would be. But I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. So by the end of the second week, you'll choose your contract, and then you have until the end of the 7th week, basically mid-semester, to make an adjustment to your contract. And after that, we are locked in, all right? There's some nuances to the policy, which I hope you read through, hope it makes sense. There's no pluses and minuses. You either do the work for the contract or you don't. I hope that simplifies everything. I hope it makes it clear. I hope it makes it manageable. I hope it makes it maybe customizable for your particular place and where you're at. I would love any feedback on what works, what doesn't work. Again, this is new for me, so feedback's appreciated. So then we get into the schedule itself. I have an intro video. I'll have to see. I haven't done this class online in a minute, so I have to look at some of the video. I have to look at the videos and see what's there and what's not there. There could need to be some videos that I have to develop, in which case I'll get those going as soon as possible. And then other videos will be just older, and that's just the way it goes, right? So for each week, you'll see what the reading is, do the reading, watch the video where I talk about the reading, and then be thinking about your assignments and be planning your schedule accordingly, and we should be fine. So there we go, gang. I hope all is well. Love to meet you at some point. If you want to come by my office, I would be excited to have a chat with you. I have been asking for at least one section of an in-person undergraduate class each semester now for a couple of years, coming out of the pandemic. And because, otherwise I'm teaching all my students online, and there's no pictures in Canvas, and so it's just a bunch of names and a bunch of emails, and I just miss the human interaction. So I had an in-person class last semester, but only about 5 students showed up to each class because I didn't make it mandatory, and I had one the semester before that. It was about the same thing. So but I still get excited about those 5 or 3 students or whatever showing up, because I really miss in-person interactions. In a world where AI is taking over everything, I hope we want and see the value more and more in, you know what? I know it's a drive to campus, but it's that important for me to have an interaction, a human interaction. So I'm a little bit bummed out that I'm back to doing just online classes. I know they're super convenient. They're convenient for me too, but at what cost, right? Because I'm missing the human, exchanges of ideas, and I miss getting to meet my undergraduate students. And so I do hope we get to meet at some point. I'd love for you to hop by the office, maybe reach out, even if it's not to talk about the class. Just say, hey, I'd love to, come by and chat about this or that. I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, I might not be coming into campus just for office hours if, people aren't showing up, because otherwise it's a big drive and a chunk of time. So if you want to come by, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to see you and talk with you. Just maybe give me a heads up, shoot me an email and say, hey, I'm going to be coming to your office this week, Tuesday or Thursday or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. All right, gang. Looking forward to a great semester. I hope you're well. It's beautiful weather out there. Get outside and enjoy it. And we'll talk soon. All right. Be well. Peace.